Ladies and gentlemen, let's discuss something uncomfortable, something that resides in the shadows of relationships but tears apart lives with remarkable precision. I want to talk about how narcissists and psychopaths manipulate women. You see, not all monsters look like monsters. These individuals are master illusionists, men who can wear the mask of charm, confidence, and benevolence so convincingly that they bypass your defenses before you even know what's happening. They are not simply bad boys or difficult personalities. They are strategic manipulators, capable of distorting your very sense of reality. Let me break down their process. First, confidence is their hook. These men don't appear unsure of themselves, they project power. And for many women, especially those who are nurturing or empathetic, this aura of strength can be compelling. But here's the truth, it's a facade. Confidence without conscience isn't strength, it's predation. Then comes gaslighting. This is the art of making someone doubt their own sanity. Small lies, blame shifting, and subtle dismissals. You're too sensitive, you imagine that. Or that never happened over time. A woman begins to question what she knows, losing trust in her own mind while increasing her reliance on him. And how do they start? Love bombing. At first, they sweep you off your feet. They say all the right words, they promise you the moon and the stars. It's intoxicating, it's overwhelming. But it's not love, it's a tactic. By flooding you with affection and attention, they create an emotional addiction that's hard to break. Next, they weaponize empathy. Kind, giving women become prime targets because their natural tendency is to understand, to help, to forgive. The manipulator senses this, exploiting that goodness and twisting it until compassion becomes a leash. And when you're hooked, that's when the push-pull cycle begins. They draw you close with warmth one moment and push you away with coldness the next. They disappear when you need them most, only to return with just enough affection to keep you hanging on. It's psychological warfare, a way to make their approval your lifeline. But approval isn't what they give. Instead, they erode self-esteem through shaming and devaluing. You're not good enough, you'll never find someone else. These words, repeated like drops of water over time, carve deep scars. A confident, intelligent woman can become a shell of herself without realizing what's happening. Isolation follows. Slowly, they sever connections with friends and family. They criticize your support system. They don't really care about you or frame themselves as the only person you can trust. Suddenly, you're alone in a room that only they control. Finally, they exploit guilt and fear. If you try to leave, they turn the tables. How could you do this to me, or worse? They invoke your fear of being alone, of starting over. They convince you that you are the problem, not them. And here's the real tragedy: good women often stay. Not because they're weak, but because they've been systematically stripped of their sense of reality, their self-worth, and their support systems. They stay because they hope that the man who loved them so well at the beginning will reappear. But let me tell you something, he won't. That man was a performance, an illusion. And the moment you see through it, the manipulation starts to lose its power. So what's the solution? Awareness. You must know the tactics. You must trust your instincts when something feels off. And you must never let anyone, not even someone who once seemed perfect, rewrite your sense of who you are or what you deserve. The world has darkness, but it also has light. There are men and women who will build you up, not tear you down. But to recognize the difference, you need to see through the illusion. Because once you can see it, you can break free. Narcissists and psychopaths often present themselves as the epitome of confidence and charm, which makes them appear highly attractive, especially in the early stages of interaction. At first glance, their confidence can seem like a positive trait, something admirable, even magnetic. After all, confidence is a quality we often associate with success, competence, and leadership, qualities that naturally draw people in. For women who may be looking for security, strength, or someone to rely on, this superficial display of assuredness can feel deeply reassuring. What they don't realize is that this outward display of confidence is not a reflection of real inner strength, but a calculated illusion, a mask that hides their true intentions. Narcissists and psychopaths have spent their lives perfecting this performance. They know how to enter a room and command attention, how to say just the right words to make someone feel seen and valued. Their ability to project charm and charisma often sets off an intoxicating spark, creating the impression of someone who is strong, desirable, and capable of providing emotional and social stability. But this kind of confidence is an illusion because it lacks the substance of genuine character. Real confidence stems from self-awareness, emotional regulation, and an ability to connect authentically with others. What narcissists and psychopaths present instead is a hollow and performative version of this. Their confidence is rooted not in strength, but in an absence of self-doubt and a lack of introspection. They do not feel insecurity in the same way others do because they don't reflect on their actions in terms of right or wrong. Without the burden of guilt, empathy, or moral concerns, they can push forward with unwavering boldness, which looks like confidence to those who can't see behind the mask. This absence of doubt allows them to take up space unapologetically, to speak with certainty even when they are lying, and to move through life in a way that appears fearless. For women who have experienced partners who were timid, indecisive, or emotionally unavailable, the narcissist's boldness feels like a refreshing change, like something they have long been seeking. The problem is that this superficial confidence operates as a tool of manipulation. It disarms women who believe they are in the presence of someone trustworthy, capable, and admirable. Over time, this perception begins to cloud judgment. Because confidence is such an attractive quality, women are more likely to overlook early warning signs of manipulation or questionable behavior. They assume that someone who exudes such certainty must know what they are doing, and they subconsciously project positive traits onto them. They mistake arrogance for competence, self-centeredness for strength, and dominance for leadership. By the time they start noticing inconsistencies or cracks in the facade, the emotional bond has already been forged. It becomes harder to reconcile the charming, confident man they were drawn to with the manipulative, emotionally destructive person they are beginning to see. This kind of false confidence is not benign, it is weaponized. It creates an initial sense of safety and admiration, which narcissists and psychopaths then use to manipulate women into trusting them. Women, particularly those with empathetic or nurturing tendencies, may find themselves excusing red flags or making justifications because the confident image presented to them seems so at odds with the manipulative reality that lies beneath. This is why the early stages of these relationships are often so difficult to resist. The mask of confidence is perfectly crafted to hide the predator underneath. It is not strength, it is strategy. It is not courage, it is camouflage. Narcissists and psychopaths often present themselves with an aura of confidence that is immediately captivating. They walk into a room as if they own it, commanding attention without hesitation. This kind of presence feels magnetic, especially for women who may be drawn to strength and certainty in a partner. The sheer boldness with which they carry themselves can feel like a breath of fresh air, particularly if a woman has previously experienced relationships with insecure, indecisive, or emotionally unavailable men. The narcissist's confidence creates the illusion of reliability and competence. They seem to have it all together, they know what they want, they appear unbothered by self-doubt, and they speak with an authority that feels both calming and impressive. What makes this so seductive is that confidence is often mistaken for genuine strength, integrity, and leadership. Women naturally associate this display of certainty with the presence of qualities like emotional stability, courage, and trustworthiness. However, this assumption couldn't be further from the truth. The confidence that narcissists and psychopaths exude is not rooted in genuine self-assurance or inner strength, but in a dangerous absence of self-reflection, moral boundaries, and emotional depth. Unlike emotionally healthy individuals who might question their actions, show vulnerability, or wrestle with self-doubt, narcissists and psychopaths operate without these limitations. They don't pause to reflect on whether their behavior is hurtful or wrong because they lack empathy and a functioning moral compass. Their unwavering self-assuredness stems from this detachment. They are not burdened by guilt, introspection, or insecurity. To them, life is a performance and confidence is a role they have learned to play flawlessly. This absence of emotional complexity allows them to project an image of strength and certainty that is both compelling and disarming. It's a carefully curated illusion, one designed to lure others into their web of manipulation before their true nature becomes evident. For empathetic women, this kind of confidence can be particularly difficult to resist. Women who naturally see the good in people or feel drawn to those who appear strong may find themselves captivated, believing they have found someone who will provide security, stability, and leadership. They may overlook early warning signs, such as subtle displays of arrogance, condescension, or selfishness, because they are dazzled by the narcissist's composure and charm. This is precisely the danger. Confidence, when stripped of empathy and morality, becomes a tool of manipulation rather than an indicator of integrity. A narcissist or psychopath uses this false confidence to gain trust, admiration, and emotional control over their target. Because they appear so certain of themselves, women often second-guess their own instincts when something feels off. They think, "He seems so sure of himself, maybe I'm overreacting." This doubt works in the manipulator's favor, allowing him to continue weaving his web undetected. What is most insidious about this false confidence is that it operates as a smokescreen. It distracts from the deeper, darker intentions lurking beneath the surface. Women are conditioned to view confidence as inherently positive, so they instinctively assign admirable qualities to those who display it: competence, reliability, strength. Yet with narcissists and psychopaths, this projection is a dangerous miscalculation. The confidence they display is hollow. It is not backed by substance, but by an ability to manipulate and control. It is not courage or strength, but a mask designed to hide their predatory nature. By the time cracks begin to appear in this carefully curated persona, when the charm turns to coldness, or the confidence becomes arrogance, the emotional attachment has already been formed, making it far harder for women to walk away. This early illusion of confidence becomes a trap, one that clouds judgment and keeps women ensnared in relationships that ultimately erode their self-worth. It is not the kind of confidence that lifts others up, it is the kind that quietly tears them down. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious tools that narcissists and psychopaths use to manipulate women, and it works with chilling precision. At its core, gaslighting is a psychological strategy designed to distort a person's sense of reality, leaving them confused, vulnerable, and increasingly dependent on the manipulator. It does not happen all at once. It is a gradual process, subtle at first, but it escalates until the victim no longer trusts her own perceptions, instincts, or memories. Narcissists and psychopaths employ gaslighting because it allows them to gain power over their target while avoiding accountability for their actions. This is not a random occurrence, it is deliberate and calculated. What makes it particularly damaging is that it turns a woman's own mind against her, sowing seeds of doubt that erode her confidence and independence. It often starts small. A woman might raise a concern maybe about something the narcissist said, a lie she caught, or an inconsistency in their behavior. Rather than addressing her concern honestly, the narcissist dismisses it with casual deflections like, "You're imagining things," or "That never happened." These statements seem insignificant at first, and because the woman wants to believe in the integrity of her partner, she begins to question herself instead. Did I misunderstand? Am I overreacting? Over time, these subtle denials escalate into a pattern where the narcissist actively rewrites reality. For instance, if he is caught in a lie, he might accuse her of being paranoid or overly sensitive, flipping the blame so that she becomes the one who is at fault. He may even fabricate events to confuse her further, asserting his version of reality so confidently that she begins to wonder if she misremembered altogether. This technique creates a sense of cognitive dissonance in the victim, a growing tension between what she knows to be true and the false narrative being forced upon her. The longer she remains in this state, the more she doubts her ability to trust her instincts, memories, and judgments. This is precisely what the narcissist wants. By chipping away at her confidence, he makes her increasingly reliant on him to interpret reality. When gaslighting is at its peak, the victim may feel completely disoriented, as if she is living in a fog. She no longer trusts her perception of events, so she turns to the narcissist for reassurance and clarity. Ironically, the very person distorting her reality becomes the one she depends on to make sense of it. This shift solidifies the narcissist's control while isolating the woman from her sense of self. To make matters worse, gaslighting is often accompanied by subtle or overt emotional invalidation. If the woman expresses hurt, anger, or confusion, the narcissist dismisses her feelings as unreasonable or hysterical. Statements like "you're too emotional" or "you're always creating drama" are designed to further undermine her confidence. Over time, she internalizes these criticisms and begins to question not just her perception of reality, but also her emotional responses to it. She wonders if she is, in fact, the problem, that perhaps she is too sensitive, too insecure, or too difficult. This is the ultimate triumph for the narcissist, because once the woman begins to blame herself, she is far less likely to challenge him or consider leaving the relationship. The damage gaslighting causes cannot be overstated. It leaves deep psychological scars as the victim becomes trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and confusion. Her world becomes unstable, and she loses faith in her ability to interpret her own experiences. In essence, the narcissist has stolen her trust in herself. What makes gaslighting so effective is that it happens gradually, in a way that feels almost imperceptible to the victim. It begins with small manipulations that seem harmless but builds into a complete dismantling of her confidence and autonomy. By the time she realizes what has happened, if she ever does, she may feel too broken to fight back, too unsure of herself to leave. The narcissist's goal is to maintain control, and gaslighting is one of the most effective tools to achieve it. Love bombing is one of the most potent and deceptive tactics narcissists and psychopaths use to manipulate women, and it is often the gateway into deeper emotional control. It is a carefully orchestrated campaign of overwhelming affection, attention, and adoration that feels intoxicating in the beginning. To a woman on the receiving end, it feels like a whirlwind romance, a once-in-a-lifetime connection that sweeps her off her feet. The narcissist or psychopath showers her with compliments, extravagant gestures, and declarations of love that come far earlier than they should. He may call her the love of his life within weeks, or insist that no one has ever understood him the way she does. These words are carefully chosen to make her feel special, unique, and irreplaceable, like she has found something extraordinary. This bombardment of affection is not genuine love. It is a calculated strategy designed to create emotional dependency. By lavishing her with attention and idealizing her, the narcissist places her on a pedestal, creating an intense and euphoric bond. At first, it feels like a dream come true. He seems thoughtful, attentive, and deeply invested in her happiness. He listens to her desires and insecurities, making her feel truly seen and understood. This is no accident. The narcissist is studying her vulnerabilities, gathering information about what she needs emotionally so he can later use it to manipulate her. The speed and intensity of the love bombing are disorienting because it feels so unlike anything she has experienced before. It blinds her to red flags she might otherwise notice. She becomes swept up in the fantasy he has created, believing that she has finally found the person who will fulfill her deepest needs. The reason love bombing works so effectively is because it creates an addictive high. Psychologically, the constant validation, praise, and attention release feel-good chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, which strengthen emotional attachment. The victim begins to associate the narcissist with feelings of euphoria, security, and connection. This attachment forms quickly and deeply, which is precisely what the narcissist wants. Once the bond is established, the narcissist can begin shifting the dynamic without fear of the woman leaving. Love bombing, after all, is just the first phase of a larger cycle. Once the woman is hooked, the narcissist begins to pull back, withdrawing the affection and attention that initially captivated her. What follows is confusion and a deep longing to regain the intensity of the early days. The woman might question herself, what did I do wrong? Why is he pulling away? She becomes desperate to win back his approval and affection, willing to work harder to please him, because she believes the relationship can return to the way it was at the start. This is where the real manipulation begins. The narcissist uses her desire to recapture the fantasy against her, subtly training her to accept less and less while blaming herself for the change. By pulling away and then giving intermittent glimpses of the affection he once provided, he creates a toxic cycle of reward and punishment. The woman becomes trapped, chasing the version of him that no longer exists if he ever did. Love bombing, therefore, is not about love at all. It is a tool to create emotional dependency and vulnerability, setting the stage for further manipulation. It is a trap disguised as a fairy tale. And by the time the woman realizes what is happening, the emotional hold is already strong, making it far more difficult for her to break free. Narcissists and psychopaths are particularly skilled at exploiting empathy and vulnerability, using these qualities as tools to manipulate women. Women who are naturally kind, compassionate, and understanding are often seen as prime targets because these traits, which are positive and admirable, can be weaponized against them. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person, and it is a cornerstone of healthy human relationships. However, in the hands of a manipulator, it becomes a lever to gain control. Narcissists and psychopaths do not value empathy as a means to build connection. Instead, they view it as a weakness to exploit. They recognize that empathetic individuals are more likely to give second chances, overlook harmful behaviors, and try to fix or heal someone they care about. The manipulator knows this and uses it to their advantage. At the beginning of the relationship, the narcissist often presents himself as someone who has been misunderstood, wounded, or mistreated in the past. He may share stories of previous betrayals, family troubles, or deep personal struggles. These tales are often exaggerated or fabricated, but they serve an important purpose. They trigger the woman's empathy. She begins to see him as someone in need of care, love, and understanding. Her instinct to nurture and help kicks in, and she becomes emotionally invested in being the person who can heal his wounds. The narcissist plays into this dynamic deliberately, creating a bond where the woman feels needed, valued, and significant. It gives her a sense of purpose, as if she is the one person who can save him. This belief, while noble, leaves her vulnerable to manipulation. Once the narcissist has identified her empathy, he begins to test its limits. He may start with small transgressions, forgetting a promise, dismissing her feelings, or showing flashes of selfishness. When she calls him out, he quickly flips the script, portraying himself as the victim or accusing her of misunderstanding his intentions. Her natural compassion compels her to give him the benefit of the doubt. She doesn't want to be harsh or unfair, so she rationalizes his behavior, believing that he deserves patience and understanding. This pattern deepens over time. The narcissist will use guilt to exploit her empathy further, saying things like, "You don't care about me the way you said you would." Or, "I thought you were different from everyone else who abandoned me." These statements prey on her kindness, making her feel that any resistance to his behavior is proof that she's not as caring or loving as she believes herself to be. Another way narcissists and psychopaths exploit vulnerability is by identifying and targeting the woman's insecurities. They pay close attention to what she fears or struggles with, perhaps low self-esteem, past traumas, or a longing to feel loved and appreciated. They weaponize these vulnerabilities by using them to gain emotional leverage. For instance, if a woman fears being unworthy of love, the narcissist will act in ways that make her feel she must prove herself to keep his affection. If she has experienced abandonment in the past, he will subtly make her fear that questioning him will drive him away. By exploiting her deepest fears and insecurities, he keeps her in a state of emotional turmoil, dependent on his approval to feel validated. This exploitation of empathy and vulnerability creates a toxic dynamic where the woman feels trapped. She begins to internalize the manipulator's behavior as her fault, believing that if she were more patient, more understanding, or more loving, everything would improve. The narcissist encourages this belief because it absolves him of responsibility and allows him to continue manipulating her without consequence. The woman, driven by her compassion and hope for change, stays in the relationship, sacrificing her needs and boundaries in the process. What began as a beautiful quality, her empathy, becomes a tool of her own undoing. By the time she realizes how deeply her kindness has been exploited, the damage to her sense of self-worth and emotional stability can be profound. Narcissists and psychopaths are masters at isolating women from their support systems, and they do so in a way that often goes unnoticed until it is too late. Isolation is one of the most effective methods of control because it removes the external voices of reason that might otherwise help the woman recognize the manipulation and toxicity she is experiencing. The process does not begin with overt demands or obvious restrictions. Instead, it starts subtly, often cloaked in concern, affection, or jealousy that is framed as love. A narcissist may say things like, "I just want you to myself," or "I don't think your friends understand you the way I do," planting seeds of doubt about the people in her life. These comments may initially feel flattering or harmless, but they are calculated moves designed to gradually pull her away from her friends, family, and any outside influences who might challenge his control. The narcissist creates a false narrative around the woman's support system, casting her friends or family as negative influences who do not have her best interests at heart. He might suggest that her friends are jealous of their relationship, or that her family doesn't truly appreciate her. Over time, he uses these suggestions to erode her trust in the people who care about her. If she shares any issues or frustrations about someone in her life, the narcissist exploits this information to reinforce his claims. He may say things like, "See, I told you they don't support you," turning her own words against her and encouraging her to distance herself further. This isolation works because it feeds into her growing emotional dependence on the narcissist. He presents himself as the only person who truly understands and supports her, creating a sense of us against the world that feels both intimate and protective. She begins to rely on him as her primary source of emotional validation, which makes it even easier for him to manipulate her. The process of isolation is often so gradual that the woman may not even realize what is happening. At first, it might mean missing a night out with friends because he expresses disappointment or guilt trips her into staying with him. Over time, this escalates into her withdrawing from social events entirely to avoid conflict or to keep him happy. He may create crises or emotional drama that require her attention just as she's about to spend time with others. Eventually, the woman finds herself disconnected from her loved ones, often without understanding how it happened. She may feel increasingly alone but hesitate to reach out because she fears judgment or believes the manipulator's lies about her support system. Once isolated, the narcissist has near complete control over the woman. Without friends or family to provide perspective, she loses touch with what healthy relationships look like. The absence of external support also makes it harder for her to identify the abuse. Her reality becomes shaped entirely by the narcissist's version of events, and any attempt to reach out for help is often met with ridicule or gaslighting. He might say things like, "Why would you tell anyone about our problems? They'll never understand," making her feel ashamed for even considering seeking support. At this stage, the woman is not just physically isolated, but emotionally and psychologically trapped. Her world becomes small, revolving around the narcissist's needs, moods, and demands. Isolation is particularly dangerous because it breaks down a woman's support network, leaving her more vulnerable to further manipulation and abuse. By cutting her off from the people who might empower her to leave or set boundaries, the narcissist ensures that she remains under his control. The more isolated she becomes, the harder it is for her to see a way out. This strategy is not accidental, it is deliberate and methodical, carried out with the understanding that a woman who feels alone and unsupported is far easier to dominate and manipulate. What makes this tactic so devastating is that the woman often believes she has made these choices willingly, not realizing that they were carefully orchestrated by someone determined to control her life. By the time she understands the extent of her isolation, the damage to her sense of self and her relationships can feel almost insurmountable. Narcissists and psychopaths are experts at shifting blame and avoiding responsibility, turning every conflict, mistake, or problem into someone else's fault, usually the woman they are manipulating. This tactic, often referred to as blame shifting, is a highly effective method for controlling the narrative and maintaining dominance in a relationship. It allows the manipulator to dodge accountability while destabilizing the woman's sense of reality and self-worth. At the heart of this behavior lies an unwillingness to face flaws or accept responsibility, as doing so would threaten the carefully constructed image of superiority that the narcissist or psychopath depends on. To preserve this image, they deflect all blame onto others, making the woman feel as though she is the root of all problems. The process begins whenever the woman voices a concern, sets a boundary, or confronts the manipulator about their harmful behavior. Rather than addressing the issue with honesty or accountability, the narcissist immediately flips the script. If she points out a lie, he might respond with indignation, "You're always accusing me of things." If she expresses hurt or disappointment, he may say, "You're too sensitive. I can't say or do anything without you overreacting." In these moments, the woman's valid concerns are dismissed and turned back on her. She becomes the problem too emotional, too demanding, or too unreasonable. This shifting of blame is so skillful and delivered with such confidence that she begins to question herself, wondering if she is, in fact, the cause of the conflict. Over time, this relentless blame shifting creates a toxic pattern in which the woman internalizes responsibility for everything that goes wrong. If the narcissist lashes out in anger, it's because you pushed me too far. If he neglects or mistreats her, it's because you're never satisfied no matter what I do. Even his lies or betrayals are reframed as her fault. If you trusted me more, I wouldn't have to lie. These statements are designed to erode her confidence and make her feel guilty for standing up for herself. The narcissist's ability to turn the tables so effectively causes her to second-guess her perceptions, instincts, and emotions. She starts to believe that if she could only be better, more patient, more understanding, or less difficult, the relationship would improve. This blame-shifting dynamic also isolates the woman further. She becomes reluctant to share her experiences with others because she fears judgment or embarrassment. She worries that others might also blame her, reinforcing the manipulator's narrative. This leaves her increasingly dependent on the narcissist for validation and approval, as he has systematically stripped away her ability to trust herself or seek outside perspectives. Furthermore, the manipulator often paints himself as the victim, exploiting her empathy to gain even more control. He might say, "I've done everything I can to make you happy, and this is how you treat me, or you don't appreciate how hard I'm trying." These statements not only shift blame, but also portray the woman as ungrateful or unfair, further confusing her and deepening her guilt. What makes blame shifting so damaging is that it undermines the woman's sense of reality. She may begin to believe that her instincts are flawed, her expectations unreasonable, and her emotional reactions invalid. By consistently placing the blame on her, the narcissist creates an environment where she no longer trusts her own judgment. This is the ultimate goal: to keep her in a state of self-doubt and submission, unable to hold him accountable or recognize the truth of the situation. When everything is always her fault, she becomes trapped in a cycle of trying to fix herself to save the relationship. Meanwhile, the narcissist escapes responsibility entirely, free to continue his harmful behavior without consequence. Blame shifting is not just a tactic, it is a weapon that erodes a woman's self-confidence, autonomy, and ability to recognize abuse for what it is. By the time she realizes what has happened, she may feel emotionally drained, confused, and incapable of breaking free from the manipulator's grip. Narcissists and psychopaths manipulate women by creating a toxic cycle of reward and punishment, a psychological mechanism that keeps their victims hooked and emotionally dependent. This tactic is rooted in unpredictability, where affection, approval, and kindness are given intermittently and conditionally, only to be withdrawn without warning. The woman is left in a constant state of uncertainty, unsure of where she stands or what behavior will earn her love and validation. This inconsistent reinforcement keeps her chasing the approval that once came so easily in the initial stages of the relationship, particularly during the love bombing phase. It's a deliberate strategy designed to destabilize her emotionally and make her work harder to meet the narcissist's ever-changing standards. At first, the relationship feels euphoric as the narcissist showers the woman with affection, attention, and validation. He makes her feel special, cherished, and irreplaceable. However, as the relationship progresses, the warmth begins to fade and the narcissist starts to withdraw. Small criticisms replace compliments, affection becomes conditional, and previously positive behaviors disappear entirely. For example, he may suddenly stop expressing love or appreciation, becoming cold, distant, or dismissive. This sudden withdrawal is deeply unsettling because it contrasts sharply with the early days of the relationship. The woman, craving the affection she once received, begins to internalize the belief that she must be the problem. If only she could figure out what she's doing wrong, be less demanding, more understanding, or more pleasing, everything would return to the way it was. What makes this cycle particularly cruel is the unpredictability. Just as the woman begins to feel rejected, Devalued or close to breaking, the narcissist reintroduces glimpses of the love and affection she remembers. Out of nowhere, he becomes kind, apologetic, or attentive, offering hope that things are improving. These moments of warmth act as powerful reinforcements, creating a reward system that keeps her tethered to the relationship. Psychologically, this behavior mirrors what happens in gambling or addiction. The unpredictability of the reward makes it even more addictive. She clings to the idea that if she tries hard enough, she can unlock the version of him that loved her so deeply at the beginning. This reward and punishment dynamic also keeps her focused on earning his approval. Instead of recognizing the manipulator's behavior as unhealthy or abusive, she blames herself and works harder to fix things. The narcissist uses this to his advantage, setting ever-moving goalposts that the woman can never fully meet. He might praise her one day for being understanding and criticize her the next for being too passive. By shifting expectations constantly, he ensures that she remains off balance, always striving to please him while never feeling secure in the relationship. The damage of this cycle is immense because it distorts the woman's understanding of love and intimacy. The highs of the rewards when the narcissist temporarily shows affection feel amplified by the preceding lows of punishment, creating a false sense of deep connection. She becomes emotionally conditioned to accept mistreatment as a necessary part of love, believing that the rare moments of kindness are evidence that he still cares. The unpredictability leaves her emotionally exhausted and dependent as she invests more and more energy into regaining his approval. The narcissist, meanwhile, thrives on this dynamic, relishing the control he has over her emotions. Her confusion and desperation serve as proof of his power. The longer the cycle continues, the harder it becomes for the woman to break free. She becomes trapped in a loop of hope and despair, clinging to the belief that if she can just get it right, everything will go back to the way it was. The reality, however, is that the narcissist's affection is not genuine. It is a manipulative tool wielded to maintain dominance. This cycle of reward and punishment ensures that the woman remains emotionally tethered, unable to see the manipulation for what it truly is. By the time she recognizes the pattern, her self-worth may be so diminished that she feels incapable of leaving, believing that she is unworthy of anything better. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious and devastating tactics narcissists and psychopaths use to manipulate women, as it systematically undermines their sense of reality, confidence, and perception. This form of psychological abuse is designed to make the woman doubt her own thoughts, feelings, and memories, leaving her vulnerable to further control. The manipulator employs gaslighting to rewrite the narrative of events, presenting his version as the truth while dismissing or denying hers. Over time, the woman begins to question her instincts, judgment, and even her sanity, creating an environment where she becomes dependent on the narcissist's interpretation of reality. Gaslighting often begins subtly. The narcissist will deny things that have clearly happened, minimize the woman's feelings, or dismiss her concerns as irrational. For example, if she confronts him about a lie or a hurtful comment, he might respond with "that never happened." Or you're imagining things. If she expresses hurt over his behavior, he may say, "You're too sensitive," or "You're overreacting like you always do." These statements seem small at first, but they plant seeds of doubt in her mind. The woman, wanting to believe the best in him, starts to second-guess herself. Did she misunderstand? Was she overreacting? Her trust in her own perceptions begins to erode. As gaslighting escalates, the narcissist becomes bolder in his denial of reality. He may rewrite entire conversations or events, insisting they happen differently from how the woman remembers them. For example, if she recalls him yelling at her, he might say, "I wasn't yelling, you're making that up," or "You're crazy if you think I'd do something like that." The manipulator's confidence in these denials is so convincing that the woman begins to wonder if she's losing her grip on reality. She might think, "Maybe I misheard him," or "Maybe it really is all in my head." This is the essence of gaslighting. It exploits the natural human tendency to question oneself when faced with persistent, opposing claims, especially from someone she loves and trusts. The effects of gaslighting are profound because they target a woman's fundamental ability to trust her own mind. The narcissist intentionally isolates her from her sense of truth and reality, leaving her dependent on his version of events. Over time, she becomes increasingly unsure of herself and hesitant to speak up or challenge him. Even when she senses something is deeply wrong, she may dismiss her concerns, fearing that she is overreacting or imagining things. This creates a vicious cycle where the manipulator's control grows stronger while her confidence and autonomy shrink. She may even begin to apologize for things that aren't her fault or take responsibility for the narcissist's behavior because she believes that she is the problem. Gaslighting is particularly cruel because it often leaves no physical evidence, making it difficult for the woman to articulate the abuse to others. When she tries to explain her experience, she might struggle to put it into words, saying things like, "Maybe I'm just being paranoid," or "I don't know what's real anymore." This self-doubt further isolates her, as she fears being misunderstood or judged by friends and family. Meanwhile, the narcissist continues to exploit her confusion to his advantage, presenting himself as calm, rational, and reasonable while painting her as unstable or irrational. This dynamic allows him to maintain the upper hand while discrediting her, not only in her own eyes but potentially in the eyes of others as well. The long-term consequences of gaslighting can be devastating. The woman may suffer from anxiety, depression, and a complete loss of trust in herself. She may feel powerless and emotionally paralyzed, unable to make decisions without seeking the manipulator's approval or validation. Her identity becomes eroded, as she no longer knows who she is or what she believes. What makes gaslighting so destructive is that it robs the woman of her sense of reality, which is the foundation for her ability to navigate the world confidently and securely. By distorting her perception and undermining her trust in herself, the narcissist ensures that she remains trapped in his web of control, unable to see the truth of his manipulation or gather the strength to leave. In conclusion, the manipulation of women by narcissists and psychopaths is a deeply harmful and deceptive process that leaves lasting emotional and psychological scars. Through tactics like exploitation of empathy, isolation from support systems, blame shifting, gaslighting, and the cycle of reward and punishment, these manipulators create a controlled environment in which the woman becomes increasingly dependent on them, questioning her own reality and self-worth. The emotional toll is immense, as women are made to feel responsible for behaviors they did not cause, and their natural compassion is twisted into a tool for manipulation. What begins as a seemingly loving relationship often turns into a destructive cycle of abuse and confusion. Understanding these manipulative behaviors is the first step toward breaking free from their grasp. It is crucial for women to recognize the warning signs early on and to trust their instincts when something feels wrong. Surrounding themselves with supportive friends and family, seeking therapy, and building self-awareness can help to rebuild the confidence and clarity that is often eroded in such toxic relationships. While the road to recovery is difficult, it is entirely possible to regain one's sense of self and to step away from a manipulative relationship. The key lies in recognizing that no one should ever be made to feel unworthy of love, respect, and honesty, and that the manipulator's tactics are not a reflection of her worth, but rather of their inability to offer genuine, healthy love.